Can't hurt. All right, celebrities have been keeping the adoption in the spotlight, the adoption situation in the spotlight, from Angelina and Brad Pitt's brood of children to Madonna's adoption of her second child from Malawi.
Yeah, while adoption experts applaud celebrities for popularizing adoption, they're concerned these stars are sending the wrong message, that it's faster and easier to adopt overseas. And these celebs could take a cue from Sandra Bullock, who recently adopted her son from New Orleans.
That's right. Now, we have with us today Nicole Witt. She's the executive director of the adoption consultancy who has helped hundreds of families complete the adoption process.
Nicole Witt, welcome to Daytime.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there are some myths out there about adoption in America, huh?
There are, absolutely. And like you were saying, I love when celebrities keep adoption in the news, but a lot of times I think the way they go about it can perpetuate some of those myths.
Right. Do you think at some point it becomes like an arm charm almost thing? Look how good I am. Look, I've gone and rescued somebody from the other side of the planet.
You know, I think perhaps for some people, but I think for the large majority of people, they really just want to be parents, and they want to be parents in whatever way works for them.
But they can be with American-born children as well.
Exactly, exactly. Like you were mentioning with Sandra Bullock. Interestingly, people think, though, that it's really difficult to adopt in the U.S., that there are no children available and that it takes years. Interestingly, with domestic adoption, being a celebrity can really work against them.
Really? So does it take years to adopt in America?
Not for non-celebrities. For some celebrities it can. And you know, when people read Sandra Bullock's story where it took her almost 4 years, I think people go, oh yeah, you know, that's what it takes. And really it doesn't. The people that I work with adopt on average in 6 months.
Really?
Right. With celebrities, usually they're looking for those 100% confidential adoptions where the birth parents would never even see a picture of who the adoptive parents are going to be, and that's why they can wait a very long time.
And they're paying for that too.
Exactly. But I had some clients, Edwin and Maureen, that I worked with last year, and we got them all ready to adopt, and from the day they were ready to the day they held their son in their arms was 5 days.
What?
Wow, that's terrific.
I mean, that's an extraordinary situation. It's not unheard of, it is extraordinary, but again, with domestic adoption, people should be looking at months, not years.
Okay, myth number 2, the birth parents will come back.
Yes, people are so scared. Of course, we've all heard these stories on the news, and that's the greatest fear, I think, of any adoptive parent, and everybody who comes to me has that fear when they start, that the birth parents can, you know, show up on the doorstep and reclaim the child. What's important to understand is that adoption is governed by state law, so every state is a little bit different, and many states have laws that are very protective of the adoptive parents, meaning that once the consent forms are signed, they're immediately irrevocable. There is no window of opportunity for a birth parent to simply change their mind and say, you know, I want to reclaim the child. And people who live in states where the birth parents do have that right, where they can come back for 30 or 60 days, don't have to adopt in their home state. You know, I work with people all over the country who choose to do interstate adoptions so they can adopt somewhere where the laws are safer for them.
Well, we talked about the expense. A lot of folks believe it's less expensive to adopt internationally than it is to do it domestically. It's not necessarily the case.
No, and I think that comes from people thinking there's less financial risk with international adoption, but unfortunately countries can close down, like Vietnam and Guatemala have in recent years. Wait times can get, you know, ridiculously long. With China, it's pushing 6 years at this point. So people in process with those countries lose money. And when you factor in the travel costs, it becomes really expensive. So people like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt and Madonna, it's not a big deal for them to make multiple trips to the child's birth country or to take 6 weeks off work to be there. But the average person can't do that. And when you factor that in, you're often pushing, you know, $50,000, for instance, for a Russian adoption, even more for some other countries.
Wow.
Are most domestic adoptions open adoptions? I mean, there's always going to be a communication back and forth if the birth parents choose?
Right. To an extent. People fear that they have to be willing to, you know, share Christmas dinner with the birth parents to adopt, and that's not true. Usually there's a little bit of interaction prior to the birth, but not an exchange of identifying information, no last names or addresses. And then after the birth, usually they send pictures and updates that go through the agency. They take them out of the envelope. There's no postmark, no identifying information, but it helps the birth parents to see that their child is thriving.
And when the child hits 18, if they want to meet the parents, then sure.
Right, or if there's important health information that needs to go between the two parties, it can happen too.
But if the records have been sealed, it's very, very difficult to unseal those records and get permission to contact the actual birth parents.
Right, which is why if you have this type of semi-open adoption, which is what almost all domestic adoptions are these days, then you can send a letter and say, are you interested in this? And they can respond through the agency, and it can all happen much easier.
And when you think about it, that's really in the best interest of the child. I mean, truth right from the beginning. I mean, spell it out and lay it out, and that we have more parents.
Really, really quickly, the cost for a domestic adoption would be on average about how much?
It varies significantly, but anywhere often between about low 20,000s to high 30,000s, but there is a $13,000 tax credit that can put $13,000 back in people's pockets.
And if a child is taken out of the system and they've been through foster care, that's free, isn't it?
That is virtually free, and in fact, some of the children get many benefits, including medical and educational benefits.
Okay,
All right,
Nicole
very
Witt,
educational.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
She is the Executive Director of the Adoption Consultancy. For more information, go to daytimeonline.tv.
Okay, we're going to throw it over to our movie man, Sam Hallenbeck, and he's talking about